This episode is brought to you by Cologuard. Do you know what's really scary? Not screening for colon cancer when you turn 45. The Cologuard test is non-invasive, requires no special prep or time off work, and ships right to your door. In just 3 simple steps, Cologuard takes the scare out of colon cancer screening. If you're 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about the Cologuard test. Cologuard is available by prescription only. Learn more or request a prescription today at Cologuard.com/screen.
And now, your daily dose of debate, breaking news, and uncensored views. This is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth. A great day despite the fact that we didn't win the prize as the greatest baseball team on the planet. Now, you think we would. We invented the game. The major leagues are the major leagues. How did we lose? And who did we lose to? And what was the one-word message that was sent by President Trump involving a whole new focus on foreign policy because of the results of the game in which Venezuela defeated the U.S. in the World Baseball Classic. A lot of people had expected there would be Dominican Republic would have a top team. Well, they did, very competitive. So did the United States. So did Italy. But how is it that Venezuela actually won? And what does that mean for future American foreign policy? It has some meaning. We will get to that on the Michael Medved Show. Also, there is an alteration of our currency. A symbol of peace was cut from U.S. dimes. Now, is this a message from President Trump? We will get to that. There is a signal that with all of the difficulties in the war right now, there has been some success in knocking off, killing, removing from the playing field of war or from the battlefield of war, because it's not playing, it's not a game, it's a life and death. There are 2 new major Iranian officials who have been taken out of this struggle. And the Federal Reserve is going to unveil today its latest decision on interest rates, marking the first such move since the U.S. war against Iran was launched, driving up gasoline prices and risking a wider bout of inflation. So we will watch for that. Yesterday was a Democratic primary for Senate. It could help decide the control of the U.S. Senate, which is very much at stake in the midterm elections coming up. And the winning candidate had a slogan that is very controversial. We will get to that. This is for the Democratic nominee to replace Senator Dick Durbin, who's 81 years young and preparing to step aside after having been first elected way back in 1996. There's also confirmation hearings going on for Markwayne Mullin, who is the senator from Oklahoma, former mixed martial arts fighter and champion, who has been nominated to replace Kristi Noem as Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Personal security became an issue in his confirmation hearings, which we will get to. All of this is happening at the same time and together with plans for another series of No Kings rallies. I think they're scheduled 7,000 different rallies against Trump across the country. Does this mean anything? Does it have any impact? We will get to that as well. Meanwhile, the Dispatch reports that Israeli officials have confirmed that their forces, Israeli forces, not American forces, conducted airstrikes overnight in Iran that killed 2 of the country's senior leaders in separate attacks. The Supreme National Security Council Secretary, Ali Larijani, and Basij paramilitary commander Golmareza Soleimani. They're both dead. Iranian state-sanctioned news confirmed that both leaders died late on yesterday. The Israeli Defense Forces said that both leaders played a role in the violence against civilians during protests earlier this year, stating that Larijani personally oversaw the massacre of Iranian demonstrators, and the Basij forces, which were headed by Soleimani, who was also killed. The Basij forces under Soleimani's command led the main repression operations, employing severe violence, widespread arrests, and the use of force against civilian demonstrators. An estimated 30,000 people were killed. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claimed to have successfully hit more than 100 military and security targets in Israel in response to these killings, that according to Iranian state-sanctioned media. Iran fired missiles into central Israel on yesterday, killing 2 people, a couple in their 70s, in the city of Ramat Gan, which is just east of Tel Aviv. Reuters reported that Iranian explosive drones targeted U.S. diplomatic facilities in Baghdad, but reportedly caused no casualties. Meanwhile, there is more on the primary election in Illinois, which was primarily a very Democratic state. Nobody's expecting Republicans to carry anything right now in Illinois. But the lieutenant governor of Illinois, Juliana Stratton, won the Democratic primary for an open U.S. Senate seat. That's a Senate seat that Dick Durbin is leaving, having been in the Senate since 1996. She is a little-known state official who is the lieutenant governor of the state, and she is on a likely path to Washington because she's running in deep blue Illinois, one of the most democratic states in the country. If elected, she would become just the 6th black woman in the history of the U.S. Senate. Backed early by Governor J.B. Pritzker, who put a lot of his personal money, he's a billionaire, into her campaign. Stratton will face Republican Don Tracy, who is a former state party chair in the November election. While the race drew less national attention than recent Texas primaries, the winner is far more likely to join the U.S. Senate with an opportunity to remain there for decades. The seat is opening as longtime Senator Dick Durbin, who's 81, prepares to step down after his first election way back in 1996. Now, meanwhile, the Illinois lieutenant governor, a candidate for the 2026 Democratic U.S. Senate primary, released a campaign ad, and it was a campaign ad that was very deeply controversial. And the campaign ad was on the internet, and it featured supporters and officials using a phrase that says, "Beep, Trump." The ad was a dramatic, high-stakes attempt to gain traction in a competitive primary where she was initially trailing United States Representative Raja Krishnamurti, who actually tried to shorten his name to Raja. It didn't work. We will play the controversial ad, which was aimed directly at President Trump. He likes to dominate everything, but I'm not sure he wants to dominate the race for the Senate nomination in the state of Illinois the way he did with this particular ad. We will get to that and to more, all coming up right here on the Medved Show.
Join in your daily dose of debate.
I listen to you occasionally when I'm driving. Turns my stomach every time I do.
The Michael Medved Show.
Next up, a laughing session from the Laughing Cow. Now, unpeel a wedge of the Laughing Cow light spreadable cheese, a delicious snack with 2 grams of protein and 25 calories per wedge.
And from the group Chicago, and from Chicago, the music setting the stage for Juliana Stratton, who is the lieutenant governor of Illinois and is now the Democratic nominee for United States Senator from Illinois. And she used a campaign ad in the last weeks of the campaign about abolishing ICE, which is very popular in Illinois. The ICE effort in Chicago was not popular, and neither is President Trump. Stratton, according to the ad that she has going, she has been declared low IQ and vulgar by President Trump, and she epitomizes the Democratic Party, according to President Trump. But he has reasons to be upset because the ad she ran sounds like this, but on the internet they don't have to bleep out a certain word that gets a lot of usage in this particular campaign ad. Listen.
Trump. Vote Juliana.
Trump. Vote Juliana.
Trump. Vote Juliana.
They said it, not me. I'm Juliana Stratton, and I'm proud to have lived my whole life on the south side of Chicago. I'm not scared of a wannabe dictator. I'm running for Senate to stand up to Donald Trump. I'll abolish ICE and hold Trump accountable for the crimes he's committed, just like they said.
Trump.
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 Vote Juliana.
That's why I approve this message.
That's why I approve this message. And at the very end, when you hear vote Juliana, that's J.B. Pritzker's voice. He is the governor of Illinois. He paid for those ads. And the idea is, really, you're going to build your whole ad around negative feelings toward President Trump? Well, this is a very democratic state. And there are right now, as we're building up to a weekend when they're doing another series of No Kings demonstrations all around the country. The last No Kings demonstration, they claim they had 8 million people who came out and demonstrated, and they're expecting more than that this time, this coming weekend. We shall see. But is there really a Trump regret that is spreading across the country? And some of it related to some of the frustrations with the war, obviously, which has its successful moments and then some very depressing and alarming moments. We're going to be talking to Matt Bai later in the show about whether we have reached the point where we really do need to pull out and just declare victory. So Jonathan Allen from NBC, who has been on the show many times and is historian writing about presidential campaigns, successful, unsuccessful. And he went viral through his interviewing of voters in a Pennsylvania town, and the voters went heavily for Trump in 2024. And some of the interviews that he performed and released on the internet include asking voters if you could say something to Trump. And these are people who voted for Trump in the most recent election. If you could say something to the President of the United States, what would you tell him? One of the conversations sounded like this, clip 6.
Let's take a listen to one more woman who we spoke with. If you could say something to President Trump and he was going to hear you right now, what would it be?
You're a worthless pile of
And you voted for him how many times?
3 times. That was my bad. Apparently, I'm an idiot.
That is not necessarily typical the polling shows, of most people who voted for Trump. Most do not have that negative feeling. He has maintained the loyalty of most of the people who supported MAGA and supported his candidacy in 2024 and in 2020 and in 2016. However, the idea that there are people like this in the swingiest of swing states, Pennsylvania, which again is going to be crucial in who wins this next election when Trump can't run, it still matters because the people who are going to be running for the Republican nomination are clearly going to want to appealing to the people who have voted consistently for President Trump. Meanwhile, there is a struggle going on about the confirmation hearings for Markwayne Mullin, who is a Republican senator from Oklahoma who's been named to replace Kristi Noem, who was a former governor of South Dakota, you remember. And the Senate, one senator who is very angry at Markwayne Mullin and is not going to vote for him, I don't think, is Rand Paul. He confronted his GOP colleague, Markwayne Mullin, during this confirmation hearing. He confronted him because Markwayne Mullin had celebrated an assault, a physical assault that sent Rand Paul to the hospital. It was a very serious matter. He was partially destroyed by his neighbor in Kentucky. In any event, so what did Rand Paul have to say to his GOP colleague that actually was a heated distraction in the confirmation hearings? We will get to that. And the possibility that Markwayne Mullin might not get confirmed to be the brand new secretary for the Department of Homeland Security. Speaking of brand new, there is also a brand new beginning of civil war in Latin America, in two countries that are important to the United States, those being Colombia and Ecuador. There is actually violence going on now between those two countries. What is that about? And what is it that President Trump has to say, the one word, to the victorious Venezuela baseball classic team that won the World's Championship? We'll get to that and more coming up on the Medved Show. And the battle going on in the Senate of the United States right now has to do with the confirmation of the new appointee, who's a member of the Senate, Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma. He was appointed as the replacement for Kristi Noem at the Department of Homeland Security. And he has a long-standing argument. I think it's a mutual hatred with Rand Paul. Now, some background here. Markwayne Mullin is a former mixed martial arts fighter and apparently very good at that method of combat. And he, in fact, one of the things that's counted against him and has been featured in these confirmation hearings has been video of him conducting a Senate committee meeting with a union member, and the two of them coming very close to physical blows and challenging each other, basically as to near fatal violence that was supposed to emerge between them. They had to be called off by Bernie Sanders. Really. Yeah, why? Bernie was the chairman of the subcommittee that was conducting that particular confrontation. Well, the confrontation with Rand Paul is different because it's concerning Markwayne Mullin having celebrated an assault that left Senator Paul hospitalized. This is what the senator from Kentucky sounded like today confronting his GOP colleague, Markwayne Mullin. Clip 2.
6 of my ribs were broken. 3 of the ribs were completely separated, such that for weeks the ends of the ribs would grind upon each other. My lung was damaged. For weeks I could inhale but not have the rib strength to exhale. I developed 2 pneumonias. The pain was such that I could only sit up in bed by tying a rope to the foot of the bed and pulling myself up. But even then, the pain was that of 1,000 knives. You told the media that I was a freaking snake and that you completely understood why I had been assaulted. I was shocked that you would justify and celebrate this violent assault that caused me so much pain and my family so much pain. You have never had the courage to look me in the eye and tell me that the assault was justified. So today you'll have your chance. Today I'll give you that chance to clear the record. Tell it to my face. If that's what you believe, tell it to me today. Tell the world why you believe I deserve to be assaulted from behind, have 6 ribs broken and a damaged lung. Tell me to my face why you think I deserved it.
And the confrontation continued. And I guess when you listen to Senator Rand Paul, I think it's safe to guess that he may be a no vote on confirmation for Homeland Security. More from Senator Rand Paul today. Clip 4.
You offered no apology.
Sir?
And you offer no apology today and no regrets. Haven't heard the word apologize, haven't heard the word regret, haven't heard I misspoke and it was heated and I made a mistake. Haven't heard any of those words.
Sir, actually, it wasn't heated, and I'm not apologizing for pointing out your character.
Good. So you're jolly well fine, and you want the American public and the people up here to vote that may or may not vote for you to know that you supported the felonious, violent attack on me from behind.
I did not say I supported it. I said I understood it. There's a difference.
So
that
means you really didn't approve of it, just completely understand it. What do you think most people would interpret completely understand to be support for or a condemnation of the violence?
Sir, as I said, we can have our differences. It's not going to keep me from doing my job as Secretary of Homeland Security.
His job, I don't think that's going to happen. Paul continued to confront Markwayne Mullin, his colleague in the U.S. Senate, about the famous video. We played the audio version of it on our show. We played it here a couple of times, I think, where Markwayne Mullin confronted the Teamsters president, Sean O'Brien, in a congressional hearing. Rand Paul again sounded like this. Clip 20.
You want to do it now? I'd love to do it right now. Let's stand your butt up there. You stand up, man.
Oh, stop it.
Say Bruce,
Oh, no, sit down. Sit down. You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Excellent.
Okay, sit down, please.
All right. Can I respond?
Hold it.
In hindsight, any requests?
No, I really don't.
So no regrets. In fact, even after your anger had cooled, you were still bragging that if he'd only been brave enough to stand up, you'd have jumped over the dais and taught him a lesson, because that's how men should settle their differences. Do you think fighting as a resolution for political differences is a good example for the men and women of ICE and Border Patrol?
As you can notice over my shoulder here is my good friend Sean O'Brien. Both of us have had conversations. Both of us have shaken hands. And both of us agreed we could have done things different. Sean is someone that has become a close friend. We talk all the time. I've been on his podcast. We've talked through this. That's how you handle your differences. Not like this, Chairman.
I'm glad you guys are friends now.
Okay, I mean, Ken, the entire thing is astonishing. And then it comes to a defense of dueling. Dueling! That's how Alexander Hamilton died, remember? is shot by the Vice President of the United States, Aaron Burr. Okay, Markwayne Mullin on dueling with consenting adults. This is clip 5.
In the days after the fight, you did many interviews in which you justified the violence as historically justified by precedents, such as caning and dueling. Is it today your opinion that the caning of Charles Sumner was not only justified, but argues still for resolving our political differences with violence?
What I was simply pointing out is some of the rules that still apply to this body. For instance, dueling with 2 consenting adults is still there. I was pointing out what is
still
still
illegal for 170 years. There's no precedent for legal dueling. Even then, they fled the country. Do you realize that the man that beat Charles Sumner with a cane, he beat him till he was unconscious? You know why no senators intervened? Because his friend held a gun on the other senators, and he kept beating him until he crushed his skull. That's what you're insinuating is the precedent of the Senate, and that's what you live by. That is a very, very dangerous sentiment.
I think it is. Again, bringing up Charles Sumner, he didn't bring up Alexander, but the idea that dueling is still a way to settle disagreements probably should disqualify him. I'm going to go on the record that I would urge any senator to suggest that Markwayne Mullin go back to his senatorial job or some other job, but putting him in charge of Homeland Security, well, it's tougher. There is also a hearing taking place now with Tulsi Gabbard, and she has been fairly behind the scenes recently. She is the DNI. She's the Director of National Intelligence. And one of her close associates from the state of Washington, Joe Kent, resigned yesterday his job in counterterror. And he did so because he said there was no danger to the United States, no imminent danger from Iran. Does Tulsi Gabbard agree with that? We will get to that and to more about her assessment of how the war is going. Coming up on the Medved Show.
Join in your daily dose of debate.
I listen to you occasionally when I'm driving. It turns my stomach every time I do.
The Michael Medved Show.
And on the Michael Medved Show, Tulsi Gabbard has never fought a duel, but she has been in our military. She was a member of the House of Representatives. She was elected several times to the House as a Democrat. She has now switched over to the Republican Party, and she was appointed to a very crucial position by President Trump as the Director of National Intelligence. She was appearing before a congressional hearing today, and she was asked very directly what she thought about the progress of the war against Iran. And Tulsi Gabbard had this to say, clip 31.
The IC assesses the regime in Iran appears to be intact but largely degraded due to attacks on its leadership and military capabilities. Its conventional military power projection capabilities have largely been destroyed, leaving limited options. Iran's strategic position has been significantly degraded. The U.S.-led maximum pressure campaign and snapback of European sanctions added additional pressure to an already bleak Iranian economy, resulting in mass protests earlier this year that Tehran suppressed by killing thousands of protesters.
Okay, the summary of her position is that Iran's strategic position has been significantly degraded. And I think there is widespread agreement with that, but there was a challenge for her from Senator Ossoff, a Democrat from Georgia, who is widely considered one of the most vulnerable sitting Democrats because he was elected in a special election that actually took place in December, after President Trump had been had already won the presidential election. Senator Ossoff, who is again campaigning enthusiastically to try to win re-election in a Republican state, he says that he questions this idea that the previous mission against Iran, which was Operation Midnight Hammer, that operation, that attack, had completely obliterated the nuclear capacity of Iran. But this seemed to go against her opening statement. This is Senator Ossoff with Tulsi Gabbard, clip 32.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
False. This is the worldwide threats hearing where you present to Congress national intelligence, timely, objective, and independent of political considerations. You've stated today that the intelligence community's assessment is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated and that, quote, there had been no efforts since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. Was it the intelligence community's assessment that nevertheless, despite this obliteration, there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime? Yes or no?
It is not the intelligence community's responsibility to determine what is and is not an imminent threat.
Okay.
That is up to the president.
Here's the problem.
Based on a volume of information
it is precisely
that he receives.
It is precisely your responsibility to determine what constitutes a threat to the United States. This is the worldwide threats hearing.
Okay, and the senator from Virginia, Senator Warner, also talked about this contradiction between her position as Director of National Intelligence and her insistence that she has no responsibility in terms of what she presents to the president. This is Senator Warner, Democrat of Virginia, clip 30.
Even in your printed testimony today on page 6, and your last paragraph on page 6, as a result of Operation Midnight Hammer, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated. There's been no efforts to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. You omitted that paragraph from your oral opening. Was that because the president had said there was an imminent threat 2 weeks?
No, sir. I recognize that the time was running long, and I skipped through some of the portions.
So you chose to take
my oral delivered remarks.
You chose to omit the parts that can contradict the president.
Okay, this is a serious matter, and there was a question from a reporter in the Oval Office to Trump, and basically talking about President Trump being more and more publicly open to the idea of putting boots on the ground in Iran. And President Trump was asked about whether putting boots on the ground, having a more formal invasion, maybe even occupation of Iran, whether that would risk another Vietnam. Here is the question from a reporter and the president's answer, clip 18.
Mr. President, because the Iranian regime has told Sky News, if you put boots on the ground in Iran, it will be another Vietnam. Are you afraid of that?
No, I'm really not afraid of anything.
Okay, maybe afraid was the wrong word. Maybe he could have asked, are you concerned about that? Because it's true, the president shouldn't be afraid, but should he be concerned? Of course. And Abby Phillip of CNN raised a question about what a lot of people have talked about concerning the president's response. The Abby Phillip of CNN talks about how the president could theoretically say there's an imminent threat from any nation. This is clip 17.
Effectively, the explanation from Trump is, I felt like it.
Mm-hmm.
So there was an imminent threat because I felt in my gut that it was going to happen. Is that really the standard, the legal standard for?
I mean, in this case, it not only matters. The Article 2 self-defense provisions have a very wide latitude.
Okay.
The Supreme Court has been willing to grant a lot of latitude to the president. Congress can check that, but they'll keep passing.
So the president basically saying, I've seen no actual evidence, but I just felt it. The president could theoretically say that about any nation anywhere in the world.
But at least in Iran,
I mean, really, I'm legitimately. Is that really the standard? Because at least, back when the Bush administration was making the case to go to war in Iraq, right? They presented evidence. It was flawed, but they presented something. They went to the United Nations and they said, look at this stuff. Look at these images. Look at this intelligence. We have seen zero, zip, right? Nothing.
Okay, that is one of the problems. And the other problem raised on CNN by Anderson Cooper about the potential end of the Iran war and the wild card. What is the wild card that will help to determine when this war comes to an end? Here is Anderson Cooper, clip 15.
Even if European allies started to decide to get involved, what kind of a time frame does it, how long does it take?
We're here on day 18. I think my main headline is, this is not going to end anytime soon. I just don't see I wish I could say I saw the end game. I think we're kind of at the halfway point. The
wild card is the president of the United States could very well just say, True. We've won, call it a day.
He could, but I don't think he has that off-ramp because Iran, imagine you do that, you declare victory, Iran keeps shooting, the Strait of Hormuz is closed.
Okay, this is a real problem because the trying to get Iran to stop interfering with the shipping on the Strait of Hormuz means that they're going to have to agree to it, because otherwise, with mines and the forces they still have available to them, it can remain a threat to the world economy. And coming up, we are going to be talking to Matt Lewis, who has written an important column about the window to declaring success in Iran and just going home. That window is closing. Why? We will get to that with Matt Lewis, columnist and author of Too Dumb to Fail. Is that the situation for the United States right now? Let us hope we do not fail as this greatest nation on God's green earth.
Sign up today for our free weekly newsletter at michaelmedved.com.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.